To the MLK Observance Day Association, the hard-working brunch committee, ladies and gentlemen, and my favorite cousin in Savannah, Chester Dunham, I am thrilled to be here to celebrate the 37th annual Unity Brunch with you. Following his footsteps, marching with a dream. I'm glad we're getting an early start on the holiday today because by Monday night at sundown, I Have a Dream will be the 4 most uttered words in America. But what fascinates me most, now that we've been celebrating MLK's birthday for a while, is that those words almost did not make it into the speech. They weren't in the original text, they were improvised. When you watch a video of the speech, during the first 11 minutes, Dr. King looks down every 10 seconds because he's reading from a text. When he gets to the part where he tells the audience to go back to their cities, to go back to Atlanta, to go back to Charlotte, to go back to wherever you came from, and knowing that the situation can and will be changed, he says, I say to you today, my friends, and then he pauses for applause. That's when the game changes. Because right then, and apparently only heard by 3 people, Ted Kennedy, the senator, Dr. King's speechwriter, and Dr. King himself, Mahalia Jackson, who was sitting nearby him on the podium, she had sung a song before, she would sing a song afterwards, shouts, "Tell them about the dream, Martin. Tell them about the dream." Because Mahalia had insider info. She had been with Dr. King in Detroit 2 months earlier at the Walk to Freedom, and he had already talked about his dream then. So, Dr. King goes rogue. He starts preaching extemporaneously, and that's when church begins. And if you notice, when you watch a videotape, he does not look down again for the rest of his speech. This is important because behind every dream is a vision. The first 11 minutes of Dr. King's speech were unquestionably good, but Miss Mahalia had already heard him deliver a different message. And now, 2/3 of the way through his speech on a sweltering August day in DC, she was probably getting a little concerned that her homeboy was going to leave the best part unsaid. So she spoke up because Mahalia had a vision. Now, it's safe to say that Mahalia Jackson was someone who spent a lot of time in church and that she would know what a great sermon sounded like. And think about it. She essentially interrupts the keynote speech, Stephanie, do not get any ideas, in front of 250,000 people. We are not in someone's living room, simply because she has a vision that the speech could be better than it is, and it was already pretty good. So if ever there was divine intervention, clearly this is it, because it was Mahalia's vision alone for what she knew would be a better speech that radically transformed the content of what is universally acknowledged to be the finest American speech of the 20th century. I mean, because the first half is good, but we are not here to celebrate that part today. It's I Have a Dream. So today, as we follow his footsteps, I want to encourage you to march with a dream, but also to have something else, a vision. Because where there is no vision, the people what? Perish. I grew up in Brunswick, Georgia, 78 miles due south of Savannah, and Brunswick Links, thank you for joining us today. And although I have officially lived in New York City now far longer than I lived here, we all know that if you are born south of the Mason-Dixon line, you remain a true Southerner for the rest of your life. I am proud to stand before you today, proof positive that Dr. King's dream was not in vain. I am grateful for the opportunities the civil rights movement gave me, opportunities that my parents could have only dreamed of, and they had pretty accomplished lives themselves. But it was my vision, and of course God's grace, that took me from Brunswick, Georgia, to New Haven, Connecticut, to New York City, to become the most visible interior designer of color in America today. And design for us is still new because we only design, as a rule, interior designers are luxuries. You have to have a considerable amount of disposable income to hire one. So this is the first generation of people of color who could really afford designers. And most of my clients are not people of color. You really only see about 6 of us on the national level. And there are far more than 6 of us that are actually working. So I'm pleased to be the one that you see the most of, and I'm grateful. So have a dream, but have vision. A dream is your heart's desire. The Orville brothers dreamt that man could fly. Vision is the backbone of a dream. It's the actions you envision yourself taking to make your dreams come true. Slaves dreamt of freedom back in the day, but they had visions of Harriet Tubman coming to show them the North Star. I found that there are 5 essential elements for viable visions, and I want to share those with you today. You need positioning, preparation, passion, perseverance, and praise. And obviously there are a gazillion more that all start with the letter P, but the best keynote speeches are also the briefest, so I'll just stop with those. Of the 5, I think that positioning might be the most important one, because as the ads for the New York Lottery say, you can't win it if you're not in it. I was born in 1964, and that's the first and last time you will ever hear me give my real birthday in public. And that fact alone positioned me to be brilliantly educated, because although Brown versus the Board of Education declared segregated schools illegal in 1954, Your Honor, which was a decade before my birth, the Supreme Court left out 2 minor details in their decision. They didn't say how to end segregation, and they didn't say when. And as you know, we move slowly down here in Dixie. So I entered the Glynn County school system as a student in its inaugural desegregated first grade class in the school year 1970 to 1971, which was a mere 16 years after the decision. My mother was an educator and my father a physician. They made learning priority number 1 for my brother and me, and we did very well in school. And so when it came time for me to think about college, I envisioned not only getting a great education intellectually, but also sought an option that would position me for a successful career later on. And even though it was halfway through college before I figured out what I wanted to do, I applied to Yale, and lo and behold, I was accepted. I was one of 2 people from Brunswick, St. Simons, Sea Island, who was accepted to an Ivy League school that year. Another part of positioning is proximity to power. If Mahalia Jackson had not been sitting within earshot of Dr. King, and if the 2 did not have a close enough relationship for him to actually hear her voice and listen to it, if I had given him a shout out, he would have never heard that. Her vision of the speech would have never come to pass. Think about that. And the same is true in our lives today. T.D. Jakes says that relationships are the new currency of success, and I believe him. And also, you will always have to step out of your comfort zone to get glory. One of the most frustrating things to me these days is when I talk to young people here at home who have never ventured out of the state of Georgia, and I encourage them to dream big and to dare to envision going far away to college or another town to work, and then bringing the rewards that personal growth from exposure to other cultures, lifestyle, and experiences, to bring that back home for a richer, fuller life here. Home is always there for you to return to. And I get all excited envisioning the possibilities that exist for these youthful new beings, and their eyes glaze over and they either look uninterested or give me 1,000 reasons why they can't. which is discouraging. So I'll move along to my next element, which is preparation. My friend Oprah always says that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And if you have ever left your house looking horrible to run to the supermarket when what looks like a man that could be the man of your dreams crosses you in the frozen food section, you already know what I'm talking about. I became a publicist in New York after graduating from Yale, and after 3 years of living with a horrendous roommate, I decided to look for a job in France. I sent letters to the New York PR agencies that had French offices, and I actually got a job at a very good one because I was prepared. I spoke French, which I had taken since high school, and I had worked so hard on becoming the best publicist that I could be that I had actually earned the earliest promotion in the history of the firm that I was working for, which was at that time the 7th largest PR agency in America. So 4 years later, I came back to New York from Paris to become a fashion publicist, which was very glamorous. But I called my mother after a very Devil Wears Prada style fight with my Vogue editor, and my mother gave me the best advice I'd ever gotten. Sugar, she said, find a hobby you love and make it your job. Which brings me, and that's exactly how she said it, sugar. Interior design had always been my favorite hobby and my passion. And that's my third vision essential, passion. Design is the one thing that I would do for free. In fact, I frequently still do it for free because I answer every email I get with a design question, which is probably not an intelligent thing to say in front of 500 people who have my email address. So just before my 30th birthday, I went back to school, to the New York School of Interior Design, to become a designer, and I got a job with the architect designer Peter Marino, who has more billionaire clients than anyone else in the world. And then in 1997, I went out on my own. Becoming a successful designer that you have actually heard of, especially a designer of color, took perseverance, which is my fourth vision essential. As a former publicist, I knew that getting my name in print would be a key element in building a career and distinguishing myself in New York City, which, let me remind you, is a place so full of designers that you could throw a rock and hit 12 of them on the Upper East Side, and where there are legions of design pros who have entire careers without ever having the opportunity to be published once. So I made it a point to meet every editor in the city who covered design, which, since I'm a sociable Southerner at heart, was not hard to do because cocktails were involved. In 2003, one of my old fashion editor friends who had worked for Elsa Clinch, she used to do Style with Elsa Clinch on CNN, called me from his new job at a show called Everyday Elegance with Colin Cowie. His designer guest for the next day had dropped out at the last minute, and he was desperate. And he said, could you fill in? Well, of course, at the nanosecond, I said yes. It was my first time in front of a camera, and as you can imagine, with my shy and retiring personality, I was smitten. I added TV to my passion list immediately. And over the next several years, I was blessed with opportunities to do loads of design segments on morning TV, including the Today Show. And people always ask me, how did I land the Today Show gig? Here's my secret. I asked. It's that simple. My book, Design Rules, launched in 2009, and I pitched a segment, pertinent to that, and they said yes, and then I kept pitching. I never stopped. So it's what I tell young people today. Go after what you want in life. Jordan, are you listening back there? Go after what you want in life, because what you want is never going to come after you. My truest dream, though, was being part of a real show, a series. And try as I might, and honey, hard work and persistence are my middle name, that eluded me. Until one day, I was exasperated, and I said, God, I can't. Okay, this is done. I cannot call another producer. I cannot track down another opportunity. I cannot follow another lead. If it is in my cards to be in a show, you're going to have to bring it to me, because for once, I'm not going after something. Because I've done the work. I tried. So a couple of years later, when one of my Link sisters sent me an email from a casting agent college friend of hers about New York designers for a potential design reality show in LA, I almost ignored it. In fact, the only reason I even responded to the email for what eventually became American Dream Builders, NBC's first primetime interior design reality competition show, which aired last spring, was because I didn't want to embarrass my Link sister by not following up with her friend. Moral of the story, opportunities don't always show up packaged like what you think they'll look like. And while we're talking about reality shows, you should know there's very little that's real about reality shows, but you've heard that before. I can always tell where the show is airing because I get nasty texts and emails from people, like on my Twitter account all over, and I'm like, don't believe everything you see on TV. It bears noting that almost a decade had passed since my inaugural TV appearance on Colin Cowie, which I hope encourages you to persevere wherever you are in your journeys today, because you will get to the end of the road. There has never been a winter that was not followed by spring, and daybreak always follows even the darkest of nights when you put your nose to the grindstone and stay your course. Which brings me to my final Vision Vital, praise. Because like Dr. King, we never march alone. We are all part of a movement, even if it's just a movement of two. Dr. King reminded us that faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. And that's why an attitude of gratitude really matters, because as your vision evolves, it will become blurry. And that's all right, because experience teaches us that although the view from the mountaintop is lovely, there's nothing prettier. It's in the valleys that we learn life's best lessons. Which means that God wants us to be grateful for both. Because Mahalia Jackson had a vision at the March on Washington in August 1963, today we have a dream. She had positioning, preparation, passion, perseverance, and Lord knows Mahalia definitely had praise. So as we celebrate Dr. King's birthday here in Savannah for 2016, I want you to not just remember his legacy, but be determined as we leave today to create your own vision for your life, your family, and your career. And then let that vision be your guiding light to fulfilling your dreams. Because a dream without vision is a dream deferred. Thank you.